welcome to Carolina Sculpture Studio. My name is Clint Button and I'm a granite sculptor. Welcome to video number 191 of the Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. Alright, I'm plowing stone off here trying to open this up, and so I've got easier access to her hand and her shoulder and all of this. Now, I wanted to show you something that I did that I did between the two models, and I proofed to help proof it. And this is something that will help you understand, just in case you look at this and you're going, I don't know how in the world that's going to be this long angel over here in the background. I mean, I just don't see how that's going to turn out to look like she is, and how everything's all where it's supposed to be and all that other stuff. So I want to show you something that I did, okay? When we swung the compasses, we shot a few points up here, up high on her. Like up here, there's one here. This is just about the highest point that I shot, okay? So what I'm going to do, and this is no monkey business, I'll grab the camera. I'll put the camera over here to show you. But there's a point on her right here, right there on her shoulder, that we swung with. I swung the compass and struck it. And it's right there. Okay? Now, this doesn't look like a shoulder. This doesn't look like the arms in the right. All the stuff. This just, and you've got to trust the process. So what I did, took my pointing machine, and I used it backwards. Using the measuring rod. Line this up. Set my point. Okay? That's the point I swung with compasses. Alright? Just like the two nipples, just like these foundation points that I did and I did here. Okay? Except I want to show you, because I could arbitrarily install these points, these foundation points down here. I could fiddle with these to make this where I wanted it to be. Nothing's changed. This is still all, plastered in around them, because by moving those in and out, I helped place her where I wanted her to be in the stone. Okay? This is the point from over on her shoulder. Check this out. Put it on the model. Just like it's supposed to be. Let's see if we can see that. And I'll try to get close up. That right there is, now I can't find my pencil. That point right there, wherever I put my pencil, this point here on the stone is right here. And that needle is, that needle is approximately a 1/4 inch tall. And it's on a curve. It's curving like this. It's going like this around the shoulder. And that needle, that point here, this on the model is about a 1/4 inch behind that point. Okay? And that's part of why I tried to set her up the way I did this. She's back. But that right there is fantastic. That means that I can take the top off that point, and I can use this extra material that's beside here, because I didn't want to evacuate a lot. I wanted just to get a point. I've got this. I can build that contour in. I got a perfect, fantastic agreement between this model and the stone. Okay? You're going to have all kinds of doubts when you're doing this. Okay? You've got to understand how it works. And once you've done it you know, especially after you've done it a few times, you don't even think about how crazy it looks. You just keep working. I'm just taking stone off. Okay, I don't have to make this look pretty. That'll come at the end. I'm going to work on getting her entire chest and her abdomen, thorax, abdomen, whatever. I'm going to get all from right about here down. I'm going to get that put together really well, so that, I mean, I'm totally confident that her head's where it needs to be. But I don't want to start carving on her head and then do stuff I shouldn't do, because I want to make her look pretty, and I get seduced, and I keep the stone keeps getting me to a little more. No, I want to make all of this great, so this all matches really well. And I want to make sure that her shoulders, you know, they look good with her hips. You know, whether this sleeve is going to change, because this will come up. I got to get this line right here straightened out. And we've got, where did I go? My pencil must have fallen. But I've got to do the hand ends right about here. And so with that, the outside of her hand going down, that's going to carry past there, you know, very close to what the model is, but probably more like this one is. And then I can have her elbow where I need it to be, to develop all of this, to make sure that this arm is perfect. Okay, so this looks really great. And we've got enough volume for drapery to get all this together. Trust the process. When I say trust the process, that point is why. Okay, as difficult as it is to swing this job with compasses, with having that flat and like I showed you how the circles come down and they just barely kiss and then they move away from each other, instead of having that really strong cross where they just go way over each other. And you can get when you can go way down on the side of the job and point from deep. The problem was that even if I went on this side, I couldn't go deep on this other side because of the stone. So I was going to be stuck with always having to use 2 points that were very close to being in plane with each other, in the same plane instead of in different levels of the stone. But something like that, so she's doing it right. Okay, so this is coming along. I'm going to go back to carving after I find my pencil. Get a new pencil. So why don't I just buy one pencil, buy a box. And if you buy a box of 5, it's better if you buy a box of, I don't know, 10 or 20, whatever those bigger boxes are. Because you need to have pencils so you can keep going, so you don't drop your pencil and get kicked under the dirt, and then you can't find it and you waste time doing that. You need to just move on. That's why you rake the floor. Okay, you go find your pencils, you find your chisels. Back to pencil. Now, for what it's worth, one of the things that's on my toolbox, I don't know if you can see, I don't think you can quite see it past there. On both of my big tool chests, I've got a pencil sharpener, okay? But the problem is the blades can get rusty if you don't use them on the very sharp edges, and then they maul your pencil. And this is a word from somebody that's cheap. Be careful about buying used pencil sharpeners, or ones that are at the junk store or the secondhand thrift store or whatever. A lot of times the reason they're there is they're buggered up, and your pencil will always sharpen. They've been, you know, bent or whatever, and they'll always sharpen your pencil off center. So get one that's good. Don't get one that's buggered up, because it'll drive you nuts. Okay? Don't drop it. I want to show you my chisel. This chisel's been destroyed, abused, used, hard, worn, all this other stuff, and it's just brazed. Okay, it's butted and it's brazed up on the sides. They don't have to be slotted. If you do it right, they'll just as strong as a slotted tool, and your chisels will last so long that you'll wear them completely out. It's worth mentioning the optical illusion works both ways, okay? You point something, you put the points on here, till it's all opened up and revealed, relieved, whatever you want to call it, everything's taken off. Those points look like they're too close together, okay? Fan's blowing the camera. And I hope the audio is okay. The audio is bad. I was showing you my chisel. I wanted to point out that the optical illusion of how these look here versus pointed on here where they may look close together works both ways. You got to be really careful when you're roughing this off like I'm doing now. And I go, well, I'm shooting this point over here and there's like a whole bunch, there's like at least an inch right there between the point of her collar and the side of her hand. So I can just take this and hog this all off down here and make it look, what'll end up happening is that distance that looks like an inch on here, it'll end up being more. So remember, if you're gonna waste it away, just like these look close together, don't go too far. So I just wanna get this knocked off and see, now that I've got this part of her down, I can shoot a bunch of points on her, the side of her, you know, this side right here. And I'm right there. I don't have to go and dig a lot. And I can do the same thing, and what I'll do is I'll fix her hand first, leave this volume. We're gonna work this down so I can point the rest of her hand, get that nice, you know, the point of her fingers coming together, and then her hand. And then do with the sleeve, because I probably got the sleeve done a little differently here than on that, because I don't have the wrist sticking out, because when I did my hand and put some drapery on it, my wrist wasn't all sticking out like that. So just for a quick reference for me. So I may have to shift her cuff over, and that's why all this is still here. I may have to move her cuff over because her hand comes down. Set my pencil somewhere. And her hand is roughly here, and it can articulate up a little bit. You know, it can go up like this. That's okay. Then if I get her hand, and her hand is right here, that puts the sleeve, the cuff, possibly over like about, you know, half an inch, 3/4 of an inch, and then I want to have my drop underneath. So I've got to look and see how that looks, so that her hand isn't as big as a foot, okay? Because, you know, you gotta, that hand, if that hand's not pretty, people will really notice. But this is, you know, coming really well. But I thought about that the other day. I'm like, I gotta show them that some of these points that I shot, and that's like the only thing that's really on the model. I thought I'd shot a couple more up top, but I had moved it into here, so, but, you know, we're so close on that. That's going to go in about, you know, that's a 1/4 inch tall, which is where I would have, you know, approximately where I would have shot it anyways until I do all this drapery. Because with the drapery, it's really easy if you've got a low spot to hide it in the fold, and then you got the high spots. High spot you have to carve off. So we'll lay out the drapery to make it look really nice and she'll look good. Okay. Now, back to work. I'll try to keep my pencil where I know where it's at. Before I go and cook dinner, I wanted to just talk about the optical differences. When I said it looks like things won't fit, when you're looking like at her, okay, and she's 3-dimensional, okay, you're seeing binocular, you know, unless you got one eye. I got a friend who's a sculptor and a painter and a amazing artist with one eye. I don't know, it blows my mind. Your binocular vision helps you understand where things are in space. And when this is a problem that translates into doing full sizes or drawings or cartoons or whatever you're going to call them. You do a rendering just in 2 dimension and you draw it on a flat. You have to imply or suggest dimension. And so that means that if I draw her face Like, see right now, I wanted to show you this because I thought, oh, let me look and see if this fits. From that nail to the bottom of her chin is right there on the ruler. Now, if I go over here, see that? I've stopped just perfect, by coincidence. I didn't try to put a line there. I just thought I'd measure it. But if I measure her head the length that it actually is, that adds like another, not quite an inch, but it adds quite a bit. And it would be up in this range, and I'd be over, okay? But that's because your head is tipped. And you get into a lot of error like that because people will, it's not, I'm, at this point I'm lucky in some ways because there aren't full-size artists out there like they used to be. Especially during my apprenticeship up in Derry, we had different artists that would draw full sizes, and some of them were, try to say this, some of them were really technically proficient. I don't want to say good or bad because it didn't necessarily mean they could draw real pretty stuff, but they understood how to lay it out because we would put a full size on the stone and pounce it, take a hammer and a drill or a chisel and tick, tick, tick to put a bunch of dots just to sketch it out to place it properly. But the problem was that if they drew that head and it was supposed to be inclined, then if you carved the head in that oval, you cut that oval out and sunk it right back and carved it, and you didn't allow for that incline to gain your length, which would boost the back of the head, because a lot of times they would, if you draw something in 2 dimensions, you got to decide where the edge that you're representing is, okay? Because it's, this is all about creating edges, and those create, and so depending on where you look at it, that line on the crown of their head when their head's tipped may look different. And so they may draw the hair, and the hair is supposed to be a certain height, and you end up with this, they got a great big old football head, watermelon head, and it looks goofy. But that's part of why using a pointing machine is so beneficial early on in your carving education, because it can help you learn where things are, and it looks like there's no way that she's going to fit into this space, okay? She has to fit in this space because this pointing machine encompasses a point on top of her head. She fits between here, here, and here. And I've got those same points right here, and right here. I know she fits. Even though it looks like there's no way she's going to fit. So just, like I said, trust the process. So I wanted to show you the point that we swung with the compasses on her shoulder. And it's right where it needs to be. It's great. This is flat and it's up, and on here, it's part of the contour. It goes back, and that's just a little bit back from here. So that's great. And this will all come together. So don't get discouraged because you think it looks like you screwed up. Trust the process and go to the end. All right? I'm going to go cook dinner. We'll start carving again the next time. As you're working, one of the benefits of these screws is that you can sharpen these points, because particularly the top one, when you're doing a job like this where you're hanging it up on the stone, you're apt to wear the point down and it would start getting dull, and then it doesn't sit well, especially in the screw, because I didn't grind the top of that screw out. Don't worry about, you might be worried that you're changing the length of the screw or the nail or whatever. As long as you don't change it between when you measure a point and when you apply a point, it doesn't matter. If you have to change it a lot, you can run into clearance issues with your pointing machine. You Your chassis might hit the stone, or your point machine might hit the stone. But as far as sharpening that during it, it's no big deal. And if it doesn't fit tight, just adjust them so that they're all tight if you have to sharpen one a lot. But just, you know, keep it to where it works good, because if it doesn't sit right down in, you'll wish it did. After I've been stripping stone off, these points, a lot of them shoot really fast, so this is pretty cool. Get in the habit when you're marking your points. Just go to everything around it that you can see that isn't bright red, and give it a quick spin with your pencil. If you keep a little bit of a drill hole around your point, like you're honeycombing it, even if they're spread, you know, an inch apart, there's still a little bit of drill hole, you'll recognize that that's a point. The danger you get into is once you strip that off, you won't recognize there's a point there, and you'll be scraping and smoothing things up, or trying to get to something, and you'll cut stone away that you're not supposed to take away. So keep them marked real well. Keep your foundation points. Okay, pencils are cheap, so keep them all marked really well. Done some more pointing around her hand and her wrist. Make sure that I can resolve this foundation point, and it looks like I shot it really well. It's really close. Check this out. Been, you know, really happy with the progress. Once you take the bulk out, just like these shot really fast. These few deep ones, the first deep ones, seem like they take forever. And then once you get some depth in here with real points, then you've only got, like I shot all these out here really quick. And you'll learn as you do it what works. I've got this point on her, the V on her neck right here, and then this is a point on her hair, and this is a point on her hair, which are, you know, this point on her hair, the bottom of her neck, and then right of her neckline, and then here. With this point where it needs to be, between this and this, we know her shoulder is going to be in this area, the top of her shoulder. And then I got a point on the outside that came from the 2/3 scale model, you know, point here. And so I'm pretty comfortable with where that's going to be. This, her upper arm and her forearm approximately are each a one head length. And so this will tip in, this will sink right here to go in, and her arm is on the side, and then we've got her, because down from her hair pretty much goes like this, and this is going to be her chest, and that lines up with her legs and everything. So we still got stone to take off there. I'll probably work with this shoulder a little bit. I'll move some stone out here to sink back to the face of the shoulder. I won't cut the top. We've got to work with where her elbows are, you know, this side over about here on her waist, and then over here would be an elbow. But this has got to be approximately one head length, and then one head length for the forearm to the top of the stone. That's where we really got to be careful to make sure we get that length right. And so we'll get this matched up. This foundation point is like, if I'd taken much more out here, I'd been in trouble. This should go and be like just about absolutely perfect, because her hand should come down, then you got the wrist, and then your forearm swells back here and drops to the wrist. So we should be able to capture that and be just great. We got a little bit of playing room here, and the hand, I haven't narrowed it too much. I'm still high, so if I want to shift the hand down just a little bit, we should be good. My hand, see if I could lay my hand. Right now, that hand is the same size as my hand, and my hand's bigger than her hand should be, so we're great. As you're carving this, or any figure. Let me hang the camera up and tell you what I'm thinking. As you're carving this figure, and this goes back to what I mentioned the other day about carving things in a lump and it looks like they're not going to fit. Your real danger, one of the things that's a real problem, is that you're going to carve it so that it looks good when it's rough. And you're going to have things spread out to where they look right when they're rough. And then as you finish them, they shrink and all of a sudden they get all long and stringy. And it's okay if I carve her and she looks kind of thick or fat or plump or whatever while I'm working on her, because the more I carve her, the thinner she'll get. And it's the same thing with other figures. That delicacy comes at the end. And that's one of the dangers that I mentioned about putting the pretty parts on first. Carve them all pretty and they're all perfect. And they're so great. You do all this work and then at the end, you can't move them. And I want to get this arm looking really good. The only thing I'm concerned about is near this foundation point. That's the only part right there that's an absolute. And right now I'm fat all over the place. And so I can take material off, I can shift it a little bit, I can move it a little bit. I've got some wiggle room. Not any wiggle room with that foundation point. That's cut away right there. And that right there is going to be the determining factor of how this forearm lays on here. Everything looks great. I don't think, if I got a straight edge, I've got a good, see if I put a straight edge on there just like that, which your arm isn't just straight when you do that, it's curved, it cups in quite a bit. See if I do that, see how much my hand cups right here? So I've got this volume, so it's going to come down here, so it's going to be more down in this area where the drapery goes up over it, and then it's going to swell up, and so that'll grab and should be just great and look fantastic. The only issue is going to be to sink that elbow enough to match the forearm so the arm looks balanced. We've got a little bit of a cheat built into this specific design. Because if you remember right, I've got extra height on the stone. And because I got extra height on the stone, I decided to stretch her a little bit and lower the base. I didn't change the top, but we had enough room because we had 3 or 4 inches, because over on the far corner, the stone drops down to be in spec where we needed it to be. And because I got extra material here, I can make the wings peek up over the top a little bit, which will make her look like she's bigger than the stone, and she's not part of the stone. But we had enough room as well to stretch the stone and make her, I think, an inch taller. I figured an inch and a half, whatever. And I shifted the points, the foundation points, down by the joint, down by the bottom of the plinth, to move that, to stretch her legs, to make her legs that much longer. We're going to pick it up in her legs. What that means is that if her arms are just a little bit long, they'll probably look okay, because people aren't perfect. You know, the human body has variations, and you tend to find something to be more visually attractive if it has arms and legs that are a little bit longer than if they're short and stumpy. And because if you've got short legs or you've got short arms, it stands out more than if you've got long legs or long arms. You see somebody that's got long legs, you go, wow, they're taller, they can run fast, or they can jump high, because you don't, when you see somebody that's got really short legs, you go, wow, they're short. And it's not a critique, you just naturally recognize it. And so if her arms are just a tad long, her legs are already a little bit longer than the model. And the model looks pretty good, I think. And so it should balance out and work really well with this job. You don't always, that wasn't something I intended to do from the beginning, but when the stone showed up and I got an extra inch of stone to deal with, instead of just sawing it off and throwing it in the scrap pile, I'm going to try to make my stone look better. And so I boosted the height of the stone a little bit in order to make it just a little bit taller, because I can. And so And this is matching up really well. So, but there's things like that. I don't want to say they're cheats as much as they're an opportunity. And you got to realize that if, you know, like I said, if the legs are a little bit longer, if the arms are a little bit longer, it's probably going to balance out. I'd rather have her head not be too big. And so if I have to shrink her head a little bit, that's why I won't commit too much on the shoulders till I get everything really figured out. But we'll get it pretty close. We can at least get the face of it worked out, and then we can commit. We undercut the arm and the shoulder, you know, to cut the top off and cut the bottom off, and then we'll know. But as she shrinks, we're going to have more room for her feathers, for her wings, because we've got, you know, that's the way it looks. And we're also going to end up wrapping her. She'll have some detail underneath. And so as this goes underneath, that'll open up more room for the wings, and we'll be able to see the wings better. So it's coming along good. But once you start really getting features like this, it'd be nice if this had an arm on it, but you know, if you do a half length 1-to-1, you know, for what it took to sling compasses, you might as well do a full length 1-to-1. And then you get into having a monster job to cast, because man alive, you know, as I had to use the crane to really safely handle everything, you know, just to cast her. And imagine if I cast a life-size figure, you know, I wouldn't fit in my barrel, buddy. And it just makes it to be too much. And so this is where we'll have to I'll do some direct carving and put it together, and it should come out really well. But we've got good volume here, and this is approximately, I'll take and swing a compass to see where this drapery corresponds to her, to go from this foundation point down over here, and see that's 3 inches. And so it'd be about 1.5 inches, it'd be about 4.5 inches. So it'd be right about here where her belt is, which is exactly where we did it. And I want to carve that belt, make that sash appropriate, make it tight enough that it allows for some blousing of her fabric, so we can use this volume to make it all work. And some of that, I mean, that's just experience. If you've carved enough of these jobs, you know how the drapery typically looks, or it's supposed to look. And I'll look in the Deprado and, you know, or stuff like that, and make it great. So, but that ought to wrap up this video. I hope you're liking the pointing. My name's Clint Button. I'm a granite sculptor here at Carolina Sculpture Studio with the Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. Thanks for coming in.